Hey folks, thanks for joining me this fine, cool, shady, 78, 80 degree Minnesota afternoon and evening. It's a really gorgeous day here today, and we've been doing an all-day smoke since I got up this morning. That's what we've been doing. We fired her up around 9 o'clock, 8:30 started a fire, and by about 9:30, 9:45 had meat on the grill. We're doing a hot fast smoke today. We split our brisket in half to help with that, and also because I like to handle my burnt ends separately from my sliced portion. But I'll talk about that in another video when I do a specific brisket recipe video. But today we're going to be cooking. We're having a few friends over, and this is our inaugural smoke on the LSG 20 by 42 brand new offset smoker line that they just redesigned and rolled out last month. And we've got ours here. It arrived a week ago, and we're finally getting into it today. A week later, we seasoned her up yesterday. Check out those videos if you'd like. And today we're doing a cook. So thank you for joining us. Let's jump right in. All right, so we've got the first portion of our meat on. We've got 2 pork butts on top. We got a 5-pounder here and a 6-pounder here. On the bottom, we have a 12-pound brisket that I've separated the flat from the point. I know that's heresy for some of you. It used to be for me as well, but that's the way I do it now. I'll explain that some other time. What I want to point out is, first of all, these pork butts are not all the way to the back. I could push them in further and get another 5-pound pork butt across the front of here, so you could fit that wouldn't even if I had a third one right here in the middle, that's not even half the grate. You could fit 3 more easily and probably 2 more after that, so 8 small pork butts on top. Remember, the bottom grate is quite a bit bigger. I don't remember if it's 30% bigger or 50% bigger. I don't remember the dimensions exactly, but you would easily be able to fit maybe 8 on the top and 12 on the bottom if they're these little 5 or 6 pounders. And I'm doing those today because I don't have 12, 14 hours. I want these to get done quicker, and I'm also putting them closer to the firebox for that reason, which I feel confident doing on this particular cooker because it controls the heat so well, as we learned yesterday. I also have, again, the 12-pound brisket here, and you can see I could easily fit 3 more. You could definitely do 4 briskets, and the point back there is not touching the back wall, and the flat here is not going to touch the door. You can see the piece of metal there between the brisket and the door, so plenty of room. And again, even though this is a 12-pound brisket, some of you guys are doing 15 pounders or whatever, I cut this in half, so it's actually taking up more space lengthways than it would if I had left it together. So I think even with a 14, 15-pound brisket, you'd still be able to put it just like this and get 4 of those across here. And you would not be able to get them front to back on the top, but you could at least put 2 more sideways across the top, and you could do 6 full Packer briskets on this puppy. I will not estimate what you could do on larger pork butts because I haven't experimented with that yet, but with these little 5, 6 pounders, I bet you could put 20 of those things. If you watched my previous videos, you know all about the crossflow technology in these grills and the real aggressive baffling system, deflector plate type thing that they have welded in here. And there's another good reason for that they do that. I don't know if you'll be able to see it now because I just made some adjustments that might have prevented it, but there we go. Occasionally, when you're getting your fire going and you got a nice clean hot fire started and you just add a new log, you'll see flames jumping up back there, and obviously I don't want that happening long term, but I'm not too worried about it because of how effective that plating is right there. It's definitely keeping flame away from the meat, but I don't want that happening long term. As you can see, that there's already a little sizzle going on the bone there. I could move the meat further away, but let's say we were doing a cook where we had this thing totally full. Obviously, instead of, we wouldn't be able to move meat around, we wouldn't have that option. So what I would do is I would just make sure that I don't build my fire too big and that I don't build it near the back. I would pull those logs forward, which I'm probably going to do here in a second. And those flames will die out in a minute anyways, now that I have the door closed. The reason they jumped up is because I just had the door open getting a new log started to get this smoker back up to 250 after we had taken our last video. It dipped down quite a bit since I had the lid open for so long. So just be aware of that. There can be flames coming up that right side there if you get too aggressive with your fire starting. All right, we're about, I think 3.5 hours in. Things are looking real good. I just threw on ribs, but as you can see, the brisket and the pork butts are looking good, getting a good bark on those. I have been smoking pretty hot the last hour and a half or so because I've been working in the garage and putting some things together and haven't been tinkering as much as I probably ought to have been. I've just been sort of letting her go. Got a nice clean hot fire going, and it's kept the thermometer up around 300 degrees, which means the bottom rack is about 275 and the top rack is about 325, and I'm comfortable with that. I prefer to smoke hot and fast than low and slow, and I need to today anyways because we got company coming over and I slept in this morning. So we're doing a hot fast smoke. Just to give you an idea of capacity, I've pulled this rack out a little bit. This brisket has shrunk up nicely. Again, you could fit at least 4 of those across the bottom and 2 more sideways on top. As far as the ribs go, I can't see what you're seeing, unfortunately, because I don't have the screen pointed towards myself. But I think you'd agree with me that based on how things are looking with these racks of baby backs in here, I think you could easily fit 6 across the bottom. I have 2 in there right now. There's easily room for 2 more on the right and 2 more on the left. And this was the shortest rack in the package, and even it wouldn't quite fit long ways in the smoker, so I turned it sideways. You could easily fit 3 sideways there and 3 sideways on the right, so you could get 6 on top and 6 on bottom just by turning them that way. And probably on the bottom you could get more than 6. You could probably throw 8 or 9 in there if you snugged them up against one another, but I have them completely spread out with gaps in between, and looks like to me they take up about 1/3 of that grill space. The only negative comment I have so far on the Lone Star is whenever you're using your 10-inch table here, it's awesome to have that table there, but when I actually have a pan of meat set here, I can't pull the bottom rack out because it bumps into the pan of meat. It doesn't bump into the pan itself, but it bumps into whatever's sitting on top of it. And even if it didn't, let's say you had something flat on here like ribs, if you pulled this out, it would be over the top of your ribs. So it is a little bit hard to utilize this when you're trying to slide your bottom rack out and monkey around with the meat, but that's a minor complaint, and I need to get a rolling cart anyways for my Weber Smoky Mountain to use alongside that for cooking prep area. So I'll probably just get a cheap Rubbermaid rolling kind of a plastic cart, and that'll be easily rectified, but just thought I would point that out. All right, quick update. We are just over 4 hours. The pork butts, and by the way, I'm going to shut this pretty fast because I've already had it open for like 5 minutes and I've lost big time temp. What you see here is baked beans. The ribs I moved up to the top rack and moved them sideways, and yes, you can fit 3 racks across the top of that sideways, and you would be able to fit, if I had them pulled all the way down, I think you could fit another 3 there on the right side. The brisket is not probing Tinder. It's about 170, which is to be expected at this point. Obviously 4 hours is, yeah, you're not going to do brisket in 4 hours unless you're a magician. This is the first time I've ever tried this. Those pork butts were probing about 170 to 180 between the 2 of them. And so I actually put them in a deep foil pan and wrapped them up. I've never wrapped pork butts like that before. But they've taken all the smoke they're going to take. And a couple weeks ago on YouTube, I saw someone do it that way. And so I thought I would try it. It looked like it saved a lot of the juice, and whenever they pulled the pork, it obviously added to the moisture and flavor. So I'm going to give that a whirl. They looked beautiful, had a nice bark on them, and so I was able to fit them both in there, turned on their sides, covered them up with foil. The ribs are looking good. Those are a little under an hour of the way in, if I remember correctly. And the brisket, as I said, was not probing tender, and it was about 170. Those baked beans that I showed you are from Russ Jones's Smoky Ribs and Southern Cuisine food channel. I mean, I view it as a barbecue channel, but he does way more than barbecue. And in my opinion, his channel is one of the 3 best barbecue channels and food channels on YouTube. I watch a lot of barbecue videos, and Russ Jones is one of my top 3 favorites for sure. I'll tell you who the other 2 are some other time. But those baked beans, we did them once before a few weeks ago on my Weber 22.5 grill. I smoked them on there. But those beans are incredible. He does that recipe. It has bell peppers in it, onions, bacon, all kinds of stuff. I think he puts some bourbon or whiskey or something in them. We don't do that, but it's still good nonetheless. And I would encourage you to check his video out and try those. Um, yeah, they're amazing. Now, one question that I've seen a lot of guys ask on the Barbecue Brethren forum um, is, how do you know how much meat to plan for each person at a barbecue party? And I don't want to give the impression at all that I'm a catering expert. I've never done catering. The most people I've ever cooked for at my house is probably 15 to 20. So it's not like we're doing parties for 100. However, up until last week, and really today, because it's the first time I've cooked on it, the biggest thing I've ever had before is a Weber 22.5-inch grill and pit barrel cooker. And I never used the 2 of them at the same time. So certainly able to feed 20 people with a Weber or with a pit barrel cooker. You don't have to get creative with the Weber, but you can do it with a second grate on top and with some creative charcoal and spacing. You can cook for quite a crew with just your 22.5. But today we are having over 2 other couples, so there will be 6 adults, and we have a 2.5-year-old daughter, so there'll be 7 people here all together. And so the way I do it when I'm barbecuing, the way I calculate is I just, one serving per person. So I mean, if you count it up, here on the grill, we got 2 pork butts, 2 chunks of brisket, and 3 racks of ribs. And I'm no math expert, but that equals 7. And so I figure 7 people, 7 portions. That's the way we do around here. All right, folks, we're 6 hours in. Things are looking real good. Those ribs are taking on some nice color. Probably another 30 minutes, and I will sauce and wrap those. The color's looking good, but I haven't gotten any much drawback on the bones yet. A little bit on the end there, but nothing on the rest of them. So I'll probably give these about 30 more minutes before I wrap them. These beans are looking fantastic, and we need to give those a stir. It's good to follow Russ's instructions on the video on these and put lots of extra liquid in them if you need to, so that they can keep reducing over and over again and get in a nice long smoky cook without burning. That extra liquid really helps. Those are looking beautiful. We just stirred for the first time, so that whole top layer of smoked skin just got mixed in its flavor, and now it'll create another skin crust of that smoke layer on top. We can't see our pork butts, but I'm going to go ahead and pull them pretty soon. I'm going to take their temps. I'm sure they're well over 200. The brisket was probing. The flat was probing right at 200. And not quite tender, but almost. So I'm going to wrap it in heavy foil and put it back on the smoker for a little while longer. The point was a little over 200 and probing very tender on one side and nearly the same on the other side, but I think it needs to go another 30 minutes too, so we'll wrap that one, put it back on as well. 3:45 p.m. We're looking good for supper time with company. All right, folks, just for accuracy's sake, I will correct something that I said a minute ago. I went ahead and took the temp on those pork butts, and actually they weren't quite to 200 yet. I realized once I wrapped them up in those foil boats and covered them up and put them down in the cooler cook zone, which is about 50 degrees difference on the bottom rack. If you watch Chris Goodlander's review video on this thing, he does a test with temp gauges at 5 different spots inside the cook chamber, and temps were even side to side, but the top cooking grate was about 50 degrees hotter than the bottom. So when I put those pork butts down on the bottom, it really slowed them down, which I'm glad, because now they're cooking at the same rate as the brisket, and the beans and the ribs will be just a little bit behind the brisket and the pork butt, which is good because I can let the brisket and the pork butt rest for at least an hour, maybe even 2, before our company is here and ready to eat. And by then the ribs and beans will for sure be done. So I just wanted to update you on that. It does make a big difference if you move things down to that bottom grate, and it certainly slowed the pork butts down. So there's your update. Alright folks, sorry, it's pretty dark, pretty bad quality. It's about 9:30 at night here, and just got through with our big barbecue meat fest celebration on the new smoker with our friends. The meat was very good. I did not, with company, it's hard to take time for video and photos, not only because everybody's hungry and they've been waiting long enough to eat, but also because they think you're weird. So sorry about that. I know it was a short payoff segment looking at all that awesome meat, but the grades, the brisket was probably the best brisket I've ever done. It was perfect tenderness, pull test, 1/4 inch pencil thick slices, good smoke ring, juicy, very good. The pulled pork was the perfect doneness. It pulled super easy, bones came out clean. The ribs were a little over tender. That bummed me out because they had cooked so slow at the beginning, and that was the last thing I expected. I didn't really ever get great pullback, so I was expecting them to be a little underdone, but they ended up being a little more tender than I would have liked. Came off the bone a little too easy when I was eating them. The beans were pretty good. We actually accidentally undercooked the beans a little bit. They were a little al dente, but not crunchy. So we'll do better on that next time. But the flavor was better than the first time we made them, so that was good. And we also, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, we doubled the bacon. We went with 1 pound of bacon instead of 1/2 pound from that Russ Jones recipe. Although we did drain off the grease, we didn't just throw 1 pound of raw bacon in the beans. We cooked the bacon first and threw it in once it was crispy, and then cooked the beans with the crispy bacon in there. So that was good. Right now I've fired my smoker back up, getting her back hot again. I've put some water in her. I didn't mention this earlier, but I was not smoking with water today. I'm not usually a water smoker, so I want to learn how to use this thing without it. And then I'll slowly add it in and learn how to use it with water as well. But I just fired her back up and put some water in the belly. And once that gets up to boiling, we'll drain her out and spray her down good and put her away for the night. I appreciate you watching. It's been a fun video to make. First cook. We've done it. So we'll have to see where we go from here. Talk to you again soon.